for the Heat, the 2013.
Hello, Iona College, coming into the break. Jersey Joe and Big Shot Rob playing our old promo there. We've still got to make a new one. We're in the planning stages of it, but we will get a new promo up and running. So we're rolling along now. Did our NFL segment. We are at our college football preview, and it's been a really exciting college football season so far. Before we get into the individual matchups, I just kind of want to go over the top 10, top 5 so far. And to be honest, the question I posed to Rob right now is right now, has anybody set themselves apart as the number one team in the country? I think based on what I've seen, I would say no, but what would you say?
I like Texas A&M.
As the number one team, wow.
I just feel they've been the most explosive, most consistent so far this year. Florida State, I don't think should be number one right now. In my eyes, if I was to do it right now, I would have Oregon there. The reason for that is Florida State, after the win over the weekend, yes, they played without Jameis Winston. Too much of a close game, though. And I think Oregon has been great. Mariota has been leading that team, and I think overall they should be the number one ranked team.
Wow. That's it. I mean, look, Kenny Hill has been phenomenal. The thing after this weekend is going to tell me a lot about A&M. A&M plays Arkansas this weekend. Going to be a phenomenal SEC matchup. I do think Texas A&M will win the game. You look at Arkansas, they have such an explosive running game. They have 4 running backs who could start for any program in the country. So they could run the ball really well, but they can't throw the ball as well. So I think Texas A&M will win that game. But if they do, the way they beat Arkansas is really going to tell me how good Texas A&M is. Looking forward to watching that game a lot. I agree with you. Florida State, I mean, you got to look at the circumstances this weekend, but even with those circumstances, they really haven't put together like a go-to, really convincing performance so far. So I wouldn't put Florida State as the number one team as well. I think number one right now is between Alabama and Oklahoma. I love Oregon as well, but Oregon should not have struggled the way they did against Washington State. Washington State really is not as good as you saw there. The thing is with Oregon, it's been their big Achilles heel the last 3 seasons. This defense really struggles to get off the field sometimes. Washington State moved the ball at will against this Oregon team. I mean, I've got the schedule up right here. The 38-31. I mean, this was a close game until about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Washington State, it's very alarming. I'm worried about Oregon's defense. Marcus Mariota, though, he looks like he's going to have his best season as a college player yet. He's been unbelievable, keeping Oregon in these games, moving the ball, making the plays with his feet, with his arm whenever he's had to. So I love Marcus Mariota so far. He is my Heisman candidate favorite right now, but Oregon's got some cleaning up to do. I think Oklahoma is the team I've got my eye on. I really like I think if Oklahoma played Alabama today, they would beat them. I think you look at Oklahoma on both sides of the ball, they've been the most consistent team. I'm still not 100% on Trevor Knight, but Trevor Knight has played very well so far. He can make plays with his feet. He throws the ball much, much better than he has. So Trevor Knight's played well. I really like Oklahoma. Alabama with the win this weekend against Florida. All the touchdowns from Florida were based on turnovers. I think Alabama's got to work on that a little bit, but overall, I think you've got to like what you've seen out of Sims. I think Alabama's defense has played pretty well, and Amari Cooper, one of their wide receivers, he's so good. Amari Cooper, so physical, one of their best wide receivers. So I think right now, if I had to make the rankings, my top 5 would probably be Alabama, Oklahoma, Florida State, Oregon, and then Auburn. Auburn's the team that I still am keeping my eye on. If it wasn't for Auburn's ridiculously tough schedule, I think they would have just as much a chance as anybody to get that number 1 spot. But Auburn's schedule is brutal. It's the nature of the SEC. They're bound to run into a loss here or there. But I think you could say that for all these teams. None of these teams in the top 5 have showed you that they're the consistent, hands down, number 1 team in the country. We're going to have to see how it progresses. But as of now, that's what I'm thinking on there. And I'm just pulling up our list right now, going over the individual matchups. Like we were saying before, some of the games here you have like Oklahoma and West Virginia. Oklahoma was tested in this game. West Virginia, I didn't think they'd put up as much a fight as they did in this game, but this really told me a lot about Oklahoma. They made a lot of plays, and they could kill you a number of ways. I mean, Oklahoma offensively can hurt you. Defensively, they can make plays. They have very good special teams, so I think Oklahoma across all sides of the ball, they're definitely a very good team. And then going on, you have some other games. LSU, Mississippi State, one of the most... I just could not believe LSU lost this game. And Rob, I want to pose this hypothetical to you. There's been some speculation now. LSU losing this game. Michigan, the way things are looking for Michigan. Could Les Miles, if things don't go well for LSU this year? You got to think, with the way things have gone for Michigan, Brady Hoke's out the door. Would Les Miles be tempted to go to Michigan if things don't work out with LSU this year?
I think he would, because that's a superb program to inhale and take over. This LSU team has been really surprising. Even when we look at week one, Joe, they shouldn't have won that game. Very close game, almost lost that. And I think if Michigan's job did get open, I think we would see Les Miles go run into that. But
yeah,
this LSU job is a great job, though. In the SEC, that's the greatest conference to play in, hands down, for college football.
Absolutely. I mean, I of course I hyped up LSU so much on the show last week, and then they go out and they lose the game to Mississippi State. But I did say the one thing I was worried about was their passing game. When their running game gets shut down, they just struggle throwing the ball tremendously, and that was the case in that game. I mean, Mississippi State, big arm quarterback, threw the ball, really exploited that defense. LSU couldn't make enough plays to get back in the ball game. So that's the case there. And for Michigan, I've been critical of Hoke. I really have, but it wasn't all his fault. I mean, Devin Gardner really is just never emerged as the quarterback we thought he was going to be. You look at the Notre Dame game last season, I thought after that this kid was going to be really special, but he's just regressed from there. Some of the turnovers he throws are just I can't believe some of the interceptions he throws. They're just the timing routes are off. They're just, some of them are just horrible, and Devin Gardner deserves a lot of blame for what happened to Michigan, but Brady Hoke, I think they're going to go in a different direction. You can't start off 11-2 and then start and go in the way that they've gone the last couple seasons for them. Hoke's going to be out the door, and we'll see what's going to happen there. The other one I was surprised, Indiana and Missouri. I mean, Missouri, to lose that game to Indiana, just it's unthinkable that an SEC team like Missouri last year, who had one of the best defenses in the country, loses this game to Indiana after Indiana lost last week. I have no words to describe my utter shock at Missouri losing that game. But it just goes to show you, I mean, some of these games in college football you never know about. And then I said on the show a little bit last week about Auburn and Kansas State. I don't know if everyone heard this, but I got to give a lot of credit to Nick Marshall for Auburn. Nick Marshall, you look at him, and last year he was a one-trick pony. I keep saying this, one-trick pony. All he could do was run the football, but now you saw he won that game against Kansas State last Thursday with his arm. 17 for 31, over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. Nick Marshall in that game won it with his arm, and I think that's why I think that Auburn is so dangerous this year, because you know how good the running game is for that team, and it was shut down by Kansas State. Give Kansas State a lot of credit for that, but Nick Marshall, he won that game with his arm. If he can continue to do that, Auburn's going to really have a chance to get to the top of these rankings, but their schedule is brutal, like I just said, but it's very exciting. We've got a really good weekend of college football coming up, headlined by Arkansas and Texas A&M. Definitely going to be looking out for them to see how Kenny Hill is going to look. But that is going to do it for our college football segment. When we come back, it's Rob's favorite soccer segment, mixing a little baseball with there too. So stay with us. We've still got a lot to talk about, and stay tuned.
You're listening to WICR, Iona College Radio.
In the last 2 hours, I've lost my job, my apartment,